Welcome back, and today we're going to be discussing and talking about True Haunting. That is the new docu-series over on Netflix. It is a real-life horror that brings chilling interviews and cinematic recreations across 5 episodes, and it is just on time for spooky season. It is a couple weeks till Halloween, and that is executive produced by James Wan. And the reason I bring it up is because of the recreations in this show that were really good. And basically the overview of this show is the 5 episodes cover the first three cover Eerie Hall, which is the haunted dorm, and the second two cover the house that murdered me, which is a Victorian house that is haunted, and a family with two kids, they moved in there, and that's their story. But let me touch on the Eerie Hall of everything, because this is by far the best part of it. This is the first 3 episodes, and so Eerie Hall is about Chris. He begins his freshman year at SUNY. It's up in Genosha, New York. This is in 1984. This story actually spans from fall 1984 to spring 1985, I believe. Soon after he moved into the dorm, he's getting acclimated with everything, and he starts, just doing what regular college kids do. And so he has a routine of going out to run. And, one day he starts experiencing these strange experiences. He starts hearing voices that are saying, please help me to him. He starts getting this sense of dread and feeling like something's like watching him or coming over him. But, his roommates and his friend, well, his roommate, because he only has one roommate, and his friends, they brush it off. They don't think too much of it until one night in his dorm room, him and his roommate, they're asleep, and then his record player or whatnot starts playing. Things start to move. The roommate gets freaked out. That particular roommate, he was in the documentary talking about some of this, but he actually leaves school because he just got super, super scared. I believe he saw something and just didn't say anything about it, because the way it was portrayed in the recreations was something spooked him, and I don't believe it was just the record player keep coming on by itself. But yeah, he left school eventually. So now in episode 2, I believe it starts off, not really starts off, but at this point, Chris starts isolating himself. His grades are dropping. I believe at this point he may have quit the running team. They didn't really specify if it was track, cross country, but he was a runner that was, hoping to get to the Olympics one day. He feels like his sanity is flipping, and his friends and other paranormal enthusiasts, which I'll touch on in 1 second, they don't really try to help him out a lot, in my opinion, not in the beginning. And the paranormal enthusiasts of it all, Ed and Lorraine Warren, are actually doing a seminar at the school. So him and one of his friends go to the seminar, hoping to learn something about, his situation and what's going on. That way they could try to, help him out and get it to go away, or whatever the case may be. But at the meet and greet, after the seminar is over, Lorraine Warren gets spooked by him. And instead of helping him, and I thought this was really crazy, that Ed and Lorraine Warren, the most popular paranormal investigators in the world, who the Conjuring movies or whatnot are based on, they refuse to help this guy. They just kind of just brushed him off, told him to go away, and that was really it. They didn't have a big role in the story or anything. But it was just weird to me how two of the most famous paranormal investigators in the world could sense something was going on with him, but not even take a few minutes to try to figure out what was going on. So I thought that part was interesting, and it was kind of crazy because you would expect them to kind of jump into action, maybe. I'm not sure. That's just me. But after that's over, Chris and his friend, they start basically trying to investigate this, um, whatever has happened to them themselves. They do kind of a mini seance thing where Chris is holding his hands out, and they gave a lot of receipts with this, with old photos that from the actual time, notes that were taken. So they made everything really believable and reinforced the recreations and everything that was happening, because they had the receipts to kind of back everything up. And that makes it even more crazy to me that the Warrens didn't even talk to him to see, like, hey, I sent something, or hey, we sense something that's going on, like, nothing. They just bounce. Like, it's crazy. But not she. Chris is at this point at his wit's end. He is really starting to lose, and he's definitely quit the running team at this point. And so, with basically nowhere to turn or nothing like that, he goes to the church that's either on the school grounds or near the school. It's a Catholic church. He goes and talks to a priest and explains everything to him, and the priest comes back to his room. So, he blesses the room, it goes away, or so we think. Chris is able to sleep until basically at episode 3, we find out that the entity is starting to haunt Chris's friends and doing things to them. And it eventually comes back to Chris and attacks him in the shower. But at this point, he calls his dad, lets his dad know that he needs help. His dad comes up there and gets spooked out and basically tells me he needs to move rooms. So he basically ends up facing his fears in this instance. And he after seeing all his friends attacked and basically wanting to go away, he runs out into the woods. And there's an interesting connection to the woods that I'll touch on in 1 second. He runs out to the woods, basically goes faces the ghost and basically tells him to go away, and he leaves and never comes back. So Chris' connection to the woods and this ghost. The ghost was a former military soldier that was captured by the Indians. Native Americans, I apologize. And he was strung up to a tree and killed. Just so happened, this is the tree that Chris would run by every day on campus while he's doing his little daily run that he was known for. And in the show, they show him running through the woods and whatnot and hearing voices. So this is obviously where he captured this presence. But lo and behold, his father reveals that Chris's family somehow has ties to the military soldiers that found this soldier strung up on the tree. That part was a little unbelievable to me. I didn't really buy that because that's very, very coincidental. And I'm not saying it can't happen, but that's very coincidental for a family member, which I guess would be why this particular ghost wants Chris to help him. I don't know. That part was just hard to swallow for myself. And you let me know what you think about it. And if this episode or if these episodes, gave you any dread, made you feel any empathy. I did feel empathy for him and all the rest of the kids because it must be a terrible experience to be off at college and away from your family. And you're supposed to be having fun and enjoying school, and you're being haunted by a ghost. So I'm sure that makes for a terrible college experience, and I'm glad I didn't have that one. But I feel bad for those kids. Well, they're older than me, so because they were in college in 1980, so they're definitely older than me. But the haunting starts to fade, like I said, and everything kind of go back to normal. But Chris and his friend group, they break up, they go their separate ways. They have most of them in this documentary or whatnot. It's a touching story. It's sad because the older version of Chris still seems to be haunted by his experiences at the school. It's something that he kind of said that he don't think he'll ever be able to let go of. So that's basically the story of Eerie Hall in a nutshell. And I'm sorry if I didn't give you a spoiler warning ahead of time, but obviously if you've watched this far, then I've just spoiled basically the whole 3 episodes. But definitely still go give it a check because it is definitely worth it. And the last one I'll just briefly touch on, The House That Murdered Me. The reason I'm going to briefly touch on it is because I didn't find it that interesting, and most people probably are numb to the haunted house stories. We've seen millions of haunted house stories at this point, and this basically kind of falls into that category of just another haunted house story. And I apologize for kind of sounding like that because there's a family involved, and I do feel bad for them and empathy for them. But I'm just speaking just on the story alone. Haunted house stories, we've been seeing them for years, and this falls in that category. A family moves into a house. One of the kids befriends a ghost that's trying to help. They track down the history of the house and find out that one of the previous owners basically killed his family in his house, and now that's who's haunting the house to a degree. One of the previous owners went crazy or whatnot and ended up moving out. I'm pretty sure I was the one right before them. And all the owners since the murder have ended up moving out of the house and kind of losing themselves in those moments leading up to that point, which is basically what happens to this family as well. But the only twist with this one is this family finds somebody who's able to, kind of help them and find the ghost, identify it, bless the house, push them to the light, and the house kind of went back normal. The family stayed there for a while after it was over to make sure that the house was good. They ended up selling it and moving away. They checked back in later, and the same family that bought the house still lives there. So That's basically the story of The House That Murdered Me. It's your typical haunted house ghost story, but it is good, and I do recommend watching that one as well. I just didn't find that as interesting as the college dorm being haunted, because that's just very, very interesting to me, because you don't often see that story, and even if you do, it's usually one person going crazy and it's not necessarily affecting everybody else. So I thought that was very interesting in the entire docuseries. So one thing I wanted to ask you all before I get out of here is, do you guys feel that closure is possible when you deal with these type of events? Me personally, I don't believe closure is possible, because if you deal with these type of events that change your entire life and everything that makes you you, then I think you get used to this situation. I think you accept it, but I'm not sure how you gain closure from it. Imagine living in a house where you and your family are being tortured by something you can't see, and things are happening. And, you eventually move and sell the house or whatnot, and you're okay. But how do you get over that when you have kids that are traumatized? You're probably traumatized. And that's just an example. So is it possible for closure? I don't think so. Not when dealing with something like this, but I do believe there is some form of acceptance. Um, that's True Haunting over on Netflix. Go give it a watch. I recommend watching it. It was a really good watch. If you're into supernatural TV, that's pretty grounded. This is definitely for you. If you're a horror movie fanatic or enthusiast, thriller, stuff like that, then this is definitely for you as well. And please do not forget to like and subscribe. I appreciate you all for coming, and keep coming back for more. And I will see you next time. Bye.